My name is Adelina Interial. I have lived in Galesburg for the last 40 years. Before that, I lived in Texas, which, as you know, or everybody knows, is the right-to-work state. That is a nice way of saying that corporations or businesses do not want workers to organize. And when I was a young woman in Texas, I worked for that in those anti-union environments. The bosses could treat you the way they wanted to, and a person, especially a person who was Mexican-American, had no one to turn to and few rights to lean on. When I came to Illinois, I found working conditions much better. Illinois is a union state where working people can join forces and bargain to get decent wages, benefits, and have someone stick up for them against owners and bosses. I know this firsthand because for nearly 40 years I have been a union member. The union defends and looks out for the rights of the workers. I am not saying that all bosses or employers who run a business, or non-union business, treat their employers in a bad way. There are employers who do right by their non-union employees. But what if a new boss or a new owner takes over who doesn't care about the employees? Or what if the workers are employed by some of the big corporations that want to keep workers down, forcing the employees to work for poor wages in unsafe conditions? Then it doesn't work out so well to leave it up to the bosses or the employer to be fair. You see, without the union, employees are subject to the whims of the employer, and the workers cannot depend on that. Especially in the case of big corporations, workers must organize into strong unions and look out for each other. Even in jobs that are considered low-wage, unskilled jobs, workers that are unionized have it far better than similar workers who have no union. For example, people who work in motels and hotels who are in a union on average earn $10,000 more annually than their non-union counterparts. And take a cashier, a job I am familiar with because I worked as a cashier in anti-union Texas. The average union cashier earns about $6,000 more a year than a cashier who is non-union. The union is one of the main reasons America has had a strong and large middle class. Unions fought for and won the 8-hour day and the 40-hour week. Unions fought for and won the right for workers to receive overtime pay and health insurance. Unions fought for and won unemployment insurance so that a family is not left destitute when layoffs come. Unions fought for and won the right to bargain for better wages so workers who make the cars, produce the steel, dig the tunnels, put up the bridges, wire and put the plumbing and heating in new buildings, the people who mine the coal, the people who serve the population can share in the company profits that were made possible by the sweat of those working people. Unfortunately, over the past 30 years, the big international corporations, along with the help of politicians, particularly politicians from one of our two major political parties, have done everything possible to destroy the union movement. They have made it harder for working Americans to reach the middle class and stay in the middle class. The big corporations, with the help of politicians, particularly from one political party, have busted unions and intimidated workers who want to unionize. And so-called free trade agreements have been signed that send jobs to countries where workers don't get much money and have a few, if any, rights. Countries like China. The economic Policy Institute says that between 2001 and 2007, the United States lost 2.3 million industrial jobs because of trade agreements with China. But instead of putting a stop to the outsourcing of American jobs, this past September, Republicans in the United States Senate blocked the Creating American Jobs and Ending Outsourcing Act. That bill would have ended tax breaks for companies outsourcing jobs. The Creating American Jobs and Ending Outsourcing Act would have also given tax incentives to businesses bringing jobs home, bringing jobs back to the United States where workers could unionize. Remember who killed that bill when you go to vote. Some people say that unions kill jobs. Wrong. Unions help establish justice for working people. The real job killers are these unfair, so-called free trade agreements. What I want and what the other people speaking today want from our politicians are not free trade agreements, but fair trade agreements. So South Korea, for example, has to import American cars at the same rate that it exports Korean-made cars to the United States. In 2005, South Korea sold over 730,000 cars in the U.S., while the U.S. sold only 3,811 cars in South Korea in 2005. And why is that? Because South Korea puts numerous taxes and regulations on cars from other countries, mostly U.S. cars. That may be free trade for South Korea, but it's not fair trade for American worker. The United States developed a large middle class because ordinary people organized into unions and fought for and won those things that secured the blessing of liberty for themselves, for their children, and for generations to follow. America needs strong unions and fair trade. Please remember this when you vote, and vote early, and take your family and friends with you. Thank you.